And we're like,
That's a pretty countdown. I got 3 minutes to get some water. Why am I the only one here? I'm the only one here. Okay, there's
oh
James.
man,
There's
oh
James.
man, oh man. Hey, you're not the only one here. You never by yourself.
Okay. I was just
Uh,
checking.
this one is this one's going to be a really special episode. Um, I get the opportunity to speak to my good friend about something that you know we talk about, but often, or I would say never, talk about in
Yeah.
public, and that's wellness. And I will say that I feel fortunate and blessed that Jeff is someone that I can talk to about wellness. I think it's important for men to have other men they can talk to. Um, I think what's really particular about um, my relationship with Jeff and this conversation is there are particular things that happen in the industry, um, and there are particular things that happen for creators that are just unique. And we're not necessarily. I want to make sure that I preface this today. Creators for us are entrepreneurs, and anybody with an independent spirit who
Hmm.
dares to go out and do something different. This episode's for you. This episode is lined up for you. The one who um, had that big idea that no one believed in. I know that's me. The person whose mom don't know what they do for a living. That would be me, and I don't know. I'm sure that's you. How many of y'all have mama that don't know what you do for a living?
Yeah.
The people who got laughed at for trying something new, or mocked, or what are you doing? That's what really today is about, and that's who it's for. And we're going to be very honest. We're going to keep it very real today. It's called realness, and we're going to keep it very raw. Um, when I think about wellness, Jeff, and this is just to set you up. How would you define wellness? What is wellness for you?
What is wellness for me? Wellness is more of an overall um, perspective of where you are and what you're doing. Um, it is managing your time, managing your family, managing your business, and managing yourself. Um, like I like to put you know the brain like it's a hard drive. Like most technical people or creatives understand, we all whatever you do, we all have hard drives. Um, it's like a 1 terabyte hard drive. And to me, wellness is making sure that you have enough space to breathe. Sometimes when your hard drive is full, you get a little sluggish and slow, and the ideas don't come, and you're just not as sharp as you normally are. But it's managing, because sometimes we take the approach that our hard drive needs to be full, or we're slacking. And it's kind of like your hard drive needs to be freed up enough that you can breathe and come up with those ideas. It's not necessarily a slacking thing. So it's wellness to me is managing my hard drive space.
Mm, 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 mm. Yeah. When's the last time you looked in your hard drive, or when did you even realize that you even had a hard drive? Like
um,
that you had capacity. I mean, because I imagine when you were young and you were, in your 20s, you
you don't access a lot of your hard drive then. When you think about it, when you are young, um, you don't when you're young, most of us had young relationships, which take up space in your hard drive. Your drive and determination of achieving your goals take up space in your hard drive. But if you still at your mom's house, you don't have any uh how am I going to pay my mortgage or pay my rent in your
yeah,
hard drive, which is a big chunk of your hard drive.
right. Oh, wow.
When you don't have a car, that's a big chunk of your hard drive. Like it's really managing all of these things. And I've always said, from a creator's perspective, You know, if you said that you wanted to act, um, but you don't have any money to get out to California to act. So the first thing that you do to get the money to get to California is you get a job. And you get a job, and now you're working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and you have 8 hours. The way I would always look at it is if you work 8 hours, you have 8 hours to sleep, and you have 8 hours that are actually yours. So if you take that and say, okay, getting to and from work takes an hour, now you have 7 hours that are yours. If eating all of the meals in your day take up 2 hours, now you have 4 hours left that's yours. Like, you start looking at the amount of actual time. Like, people often would say about, oh man, I don't have enough free time.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that really comes if you work 8 hours, you sleep 8 hours, you have 8 hours that are yours. If you add in all of the extra stuff, you may have 4 hours that are actually yours in your entire day. So how do you manage those 4 hours? And when you look at it like that, 4 hours don't seem like it's a lot. But you look at how do you manage that? But this is all you trying to act. That now I got to get to the job, so I have to buy a car.
Right.
So once you buy a car, this is where the trap comes in.
Yep.
Because now all of this is to get to California so that you can live your dream. But now you have a car note that you have to maintain to get to the 40-hour-a-week job to make the money to act.
Yeah.
And now you met a guy or you met a girl, and now those 4 hours that you had are taken up because now you have a social life. And this just kind of shows how sometimes you can get caught in this loop of survival, and it pushes you farther and further away from your dream.
Yeah, and then you question, like, is it survival, or are you adding things into your mix? Are you building your world around a false North Star, which ends up bringing more stress, I would say. So, for instance, I just think about, do you really need a car with that car payment? Like, is that really necessary? Or if you'd have 2 cars or 3 cars, or do you really need that studio? Let's take it down to like record. Like, do you, or can you figure out a way to partner with someone to build a studio?
Well, I mean, you also got to understand that, you were talking about 22-year-old Jeff.
That's
22-year-old Jeff don't think like that.
That's right.
He's not mature enough to think like that because this is his first go round. Like, you come up with those answers after you've had enough experience and have done enough wrong shit that you just kind of like, yo, I think I should rethink this and go another direction. What 22-year-old Jeff, 32-year-old Jeff, 42-year-old Jeff, and 52-year-old Jeff did were all different. Like, this is a constant evolution of you understanding. There was a point in time that I felt like I finally got in the driver's seat of what I'm doing and what I want to do. But that led me to do 160 shows a year because I thought, I thought you're supposed to take everything that comes your way. And that's not necessarily, like you only realize that that's not the way after you take everything that comes your way and so much other stuff starts to sacrifice. And then it's kind of like, you know what? I need to back off and figure out this is you're at the mixing board and you are trying to mix your life. Yep. And sometimes your job is too loud in the mix and you got to turn that shit down. Sometimes you got to turn your personal life up a little bit. Sometimes you got to turn sleep up a little bit because something in the mix is suffering.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really when you look at it, like, using that analogy, that's basically the juggle, and it never ends. It never ends. Something can happen in the world today to throw your mix off, and you have to go back in the studio and turn some shit down and turn some shit up, and but that's a constant thing.
Yeah.
I thought doing 160 shows a year and making as much money as I can was going to be the answer.
Yeah.
And sometimes, most times, money is not the answer. It's society makes you think that money is the answer to everything. I know a lot of rich unhappy people.
Yep. If you're just tuning in, welcome to Creators Union. Today we're talking about just the most real thing we can talk about, and we're doing it with a paintbrush that is real, and it's wellness. And we have a couple other people are joining us. I'm going to add Mr. Brian Dawson and someone you know really well, Mr. Jeff Towns.
Yes.
Your better half, Lynette Towns. And on that shift, I'm someone who has not necessarily been great at managing my family time. I definitely had a lot of seasons where I sacrificed being home. I sacrificed time with my kids. Sacrificed relationships. Been really shitty in relationships because I'm really focused on my career. And I want to know how the wellness works in your house, Lynette. Specifically, how do you manage all the things you manage, and also be both manager and spouse to a creator? Which I want to make sure that when we're talking about this today, creators aren't anything special people. There are a bunch of people who do creative things in the world, and this episode's for you today. And that creativity could be having the courage to start a new company, having the passion to do that. So I'm going to speak to you guys who are out there who are the independent spirit folk. But how do you, wearing all the hats that you wear, Lynette, how do you balance all those things?
I don't know. Actually, I take that back. I do know. I have some help. I am blessed to have a great support system, and including Jeff. And he's more partner than support system, but both. But, family members that are here and just really getting people involved. That's one aspect of that. And it helps to have people who are paying attention to you.
Mm.
And that's one of those interesting ones I've learned more recently. Like,
Yeah.
My niece did that to me today. Like, she walked in my office and she says, "Did you eat something?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I did today, actually, And so those types of things are very, are blessings to have. But more specific to how we operate,
Yeah.
while we're on the topic of wellness, I am a huge believer in therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and talking through ideas, thoughts, questioning, those type of things.
Why is that? Why is that important?
Because sometimes getting something out, I think people underestimate how even speaking about a thing can help you work through that thing, or just help you process something. I'll give you an example. Everybody's had this. If you ever been upset with somebody or mad about something, and you type out an email like you type out, and I do this often. I type out all this stuff, and in my head I think I sent it because I really just needed to get it out. And maybe you never send it, but most of it is just getting it out. And I don't necessarily think that your family members and friends need to always be the person to be on the receiving end of you getting things out. And it's probably better when they're not. because that way you're able to be a little, maybe a little more honest, perhaps, or even, as much as your friends and family can listen, they're going to receive the information with a lens that is rooted in who they are and them knowing who you are, and I think that there's something that comes along with that isn't always, sometimes you just need somebody that's like they literally has no dog in the fight to speak
Yeah.
and talk something through,
Mhm.
and they don't have the baggage or their own things that you may even be connected to, like you have a friend that if you're still in the back of your mind trying to figure out why that person didn't call you back or didn't meet up with you for dinner the next day, then when they call you with a problem, how present are you in receiving it, and so I just think that talking to someone that isn't a family member or a
Yeah.
friend or someone so close to
Yeah.
you is helpful, and I don't think people you know think about that enough. And so that's definitely a big part of how we
Okay.
manage things.
Let me ask you a question, Jeff. Um, what's been the role of expectations?
Say that
And
again.
what's been the role of expectations and how has that played? How has that affected you? I think about that in terms of
Mhm.
whether it's, releasing a sophomore album or even expectations that you're showing up to the gig and you're actually cordial, whatever those things are.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about expectations.
Um, well, one of the things that I realize is sometimes the expectations that are there are not the expectations from you. Um, I always would use this as an example. I remember, our album came out. It was number one. I was, at the peak, and I went to a McDonald's drive-through, and a girl in the drive-through said, "Why are you driving? Why are you eating McDonald's?" And I remember looking at her and said, "Because I like the fries." Like, just because of my job, it didn't change my appetite or change what I like. But what I realized is it wasn't me, it was her. It was because of who I see you as, you shouldn't be eating here. And you start, like I had a really, really good friend that said to me one day, how come you don't date Hollywood girls? And I actually got offended because it was kind of like, what's wrong with the people that I'm dating? The expectation is because if you're in the public eyesight, you should be with someone else in the public eyesight. And all of those are expectations. All of those are expectations that people, put on your life, on top of the expectations that you will put on yourself. If you don't figure out, because I almost feel like you have to have a ton of expectations and then scale them back. That's the only way that you're going to really understand what and how to deal with those expectations. That it's just I I want to live a good life. I want to be able to take a vacation when I want to. I want my family to be taken care of. All of these things that you say that you want, and especially from a creative career, you have an expectation of where you want your career to go. And it's managing that when you realize where it actually is and accepting that. I remember looking at or listening to one of Michael Moore's audiobooks, and I think it was either one of them, Dude, Where's My Country? But he said something that he said that the United States was the only country that breeds their citizens to be rich. And I remember thinking about that. He said, in Germany, a lot of the culture is, you know what? I have a trade. I'm going to get a good job. I'm going to marry someone that I love. We're going to have a couple of kids. We're going to go on vacation, and we're going to live a life. And when I really thought about that, I was like, because you accepted those expectations, you probably lived a lot more of a fruitful life than someone who goes down thinking I'm supposed to be in the top 1% in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and and I remember reading that, and I was just, you know, because I especially when I listened to that, I was completely on that side. I was completely on the, yeah, I need about 7 zeros in my bank account, but you drive yourself crazy trying to get there, and to only get to a point when you're kind of like, you know what, I would love to live a life that is a lot more stressless than trying to achieve something that you may never get.
Yeah. Man, I'll be honest with you. I lived a life of expectations, and it was it was cancerous in that, like, I was trying to please everybody else. I was trying to please and make everybody else's expectations a reality, and it just became me living the most inauthentic life I've ever lived. You know, like I wasn't honest with myself. I wasn't honest with people because I was chasing something. You know, I'm gonna go to you, Brian. We went to a high school in California, Palo Alto High School, which has tremendous expectations that you go on to Stanford, or which is across the street from our high school. Shout out to Palo Alto. That you would do well, that you would have a great life. I met zero. I graduated with a 2.1. I had a 1.9 in my junior year. I met expectations. But what has expectations meant for you? And how has it played a role? How have you managed them?
Yeah, actually, I think I have a different take on it. You know, first I'll talk about, and I don't want to lean too far into it, but, you know, we'll just say that on the one side of the expectations in Palo Alto High School, where we went, has a legacy of, I'm a little bit reticent to jump into it, but it has a legacy of students breaking down, taking their life. Now, I think I had a different experience, right? And my different experience was there were a group of kids that we were set aside. They didn't have an expectation for us. So if we're talking about that root of expectation, right, more what sort of drove me there, and as an honor I carry, is there's a group of people, we could name names, that if you went on to say, look, Brian's a technology executive. He's done this. He's done that. He's built a beautiful family. They had no expectations. So that's how I responded to it. I think we'll dive in more later. And look, I'll say that carrying that into the technology world, right? There was more of that, right? We don't expect a lot. You show up, you blow people away. That's a driver to blow them away. But then we also get into this world of, now you move into this world where you do talk about, look, we expect that you're doing 16-hour days. We expect that you grind, that you're available all the time. Now, the other side of that for me, and I'll just lay this seed for later, was the imposter syndrome, right? And I am forced to couch a lot in my identity and juxtaposition as what we'll call an other or an outsider in a culture that traditionally didn't welcome a me, right? So now you get into this loop that I think is common across our independent spirits creators and builders. How much do you fly your own path and tackle your own bar, as opposed to now all of a sudden aligning what your target is, what, to, okay, this group has an expectations of how things work, of how I talk, of what I do, and how much am I going to align towards that? And kind of my closing statement here that I think is a common theme in some of the stuff we've already heard so far. You know what? You're probably not going to find happiness chasing somebody else's expectations. You're going to really be at risk of breaking yourself.
Yeah. One of the things that's kind of struck me is there has been this, and I was one of these people, I'm not gonna lie to you, this glorification or romanticizing of like the grind, the hustle. And I'm sure, Jeff, you would say that about me when I was in my, my mid-20s. I wore it like a badge of honor. I work a full day in Madison Avenue at Columbia Records. I jump on the turnpike and I'm in the studio at Touch of Jazz with the producers. Like, I was doing that and puffing my chest out that I could do all these things, that I had all these side hustles and things going on. And out of the side hustles, shoot, I birthed an internet company from my desk at Columbia Records. I was proud. In fact, I built a whole website called sidehustle.com, and when I think about that, to what degree, right? To what extent was that? And more importantly, today, like, I think about, like, how can I achieve the dreams, the goals, the vision that I know God has given me and not burn myself out? So my question for all of us really is, there is a level of like grind. You got to be in the grind. You got to do what it takes. You got to jump on the flight, catch the flight, do the thing. I was so proud of myself. I used to do red eyes like nothing. I once took a red eye with Nas to LA, came back the next day in New York for a meeting. And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. I wonder if you can reflect on like the romanticizing of the grind, and when the grind becomes a check engine light that goes beyond just the grind, when the grind actually becomes a warning for something more serious, like how do we recognize what we essentially are talking about, which is burnout? Yeah. And so how do you distinguish between the normal grind and stress and things that are more serious concerns? So I don't know if that's ever happened for you, Jeff.
Oh boy, what?
Of course.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, we both know some industry professionals that we lost because the grind and the pressure got too much for them to handle.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you're in an industry that is a badge of honor. Everybody was. You wanted to tell somebody how many hours you put in, as a signal of you're doing the work. And I think, there were a couple of warning signs. We were talking off camera, and I said, I remember, studio culture. Studio cultures is meet me at the studio at 8:00 at night. We gonna get in here and we gonna get some fast food, and we're going to be in here all night working on music, and we're going to come out at 7:00 in the morning. We're going to go to IHOP and get something to eat and go to sleep and start all over again. That is not a healthy life. And you start to realize that the older that you get, when your body can't take the Chinese food at 2:00 in the morning or the IHOP, early in the morning, and the lack of sleep. But I remember reading an article that Pharrell had said that he treats the studio like a 9-to-5 job. He's like, I don't do those 2 a.m. sessions. I may go in at 11 and I go home and eat dinner with my family at 7. And I remember thinking, that's odd, but that actually makes a lot of sense. Because the thing that I think with creatives, we don't give ourselves enough credit that we control our schedule to a certain degree. A lot of those expectations that we put and the grind that we put is more peer pressure from the people around you that say that that's how it's supposed to get. You gotta work 26 hours a day. And that might not work for you. I really found that I am 10 times more efficient going to bed at 10 o'clock, waking up at 6 o'clock, taking the kids to school, coming back. I go in the studio. I'm in the studio at 8 o'clock. There's nothing open at 8 o'clock. I can't go to the mall. I can't go to the store. You don't realize that so many of those things are distractions for you when you're trying to get something done. I realized that 8 o'clock was one of the most peaceful times in the world because there's no one that's going to call you because everybody else is on the grind and they just went to sleep at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
But I was able to get pretty much a day's worth of work done by 12 o'clock because there were no distractions. Now, what I'll tell you is this happened after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this wasn't something that I came up with. I had gotten to the point of driving pretty much the car off the cliff. And, I am one of those people that I think things happen for a reason. I don't like talking about so much of the pandemic because what the pandemic did for me was absolutely amazing, and it didn't do that for everybody. I had burnt the candle so much that it started to affect our relationship, me and Lynette's relationship. And I was blessed to realize, like, oh shit, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. Like, none of this 160 dates a year show shit would matter if I don't have my family.
Yeah.
So I probably need to go back in the studio and change these levels because this mix is horrible right now.
Well, yeah.
But what happened is we were able to sit down and have a conversation, and I was like, I'm going in to fix it. And literally a month later, I was laying on my deathbed. So it was kind of like, you don't understand the shit that was going through my head because I'm saying, oh my God, what if I didn't make the attempt to fix this? And I'm sitting here laying on my deathbed. All of this shit was going through my head. What if this is the consequence of me having a bad mix? Like, what if, I didn't talk for 10 days, wow. So I'm with my brain and just going through all the rest of this. And I remember saying a prayer that I was like, you can take every last thing that I've ever obtained away to give me the ability to go for a walk with my wife and kids. And I was dead ass serious. So it was also interesting that when it all changed, when the world shut down. So it was kind of like, that's where the spiritual side came for me, that it was kind of like, wow. So God tapped me on the shoulder and said, you know what? I'm going to help you out a little bit. I'm going to shut all of this shit down. I'm going to shut it down, and I'm going to let you build it back up. Now, if you build it back up the way that you had it before, there's nothing that I can do because I'm giving you a clean slate to build it back up. And it was literally, I realized we were gonna be down for a minute, and but I was down with my family.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, and I didn't mean to interrupt you at that particular moment. It just something hit me, man. Just to ask you, those conversations you had with God, what did they sound like before the year of COVID? Like how and this isn't going to be a Sunday service, but it is. But like, I want to know, like, what was your relationship with something higher along the journey?
Oh, I absolutely took it for granted. Like you absolutely, you have a belief, and but we wasn't rapping.
You
We
couldn't
weren't having
hear him.
conversation.
You couldn't hear him.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just it was none of that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there was a level of guilt me asking if you help me get through this, you can take it all away. Because it was literally, damn, man, I don't have a conversation with you,
Right.
but when I need you, I'm going to call you. And I was just like, wow, that's whack. That was really whack on my part. But I had to understand that it was kind of like, I really looked at it like, okay, it's time to go in the studio and change the mix.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what was that like for you, Lynette? Talk to me about that period of time.
Well,
how-
I get a power cord for my computer for you.
Okay, go ahead. I'll put it on solo.
You're just gonna put me on the spot like that,
I
man.
am.
That was an interesting time, because like he said, that was already a straining moment for us, and then to add some things on top of it, that was one of those. It was one of those like really not knowing what was going to happen. You really were in that situation. Like there could have been moments in there where I'm like, I don't like you right now. I love you though. And we got, and we're here.
Yeah.
And then it's okay, let's fix this. Okay, the world is shutting down, and why are you in the bed and you look like this and no one knows what's going on? And now there's a whole other layer of emotions and things to deal with, because now it's like, okay, we're not even talking about that right now. Let's focus on this right now. And so all of that was a crazy time, but I think, one of the things I would say, Jeff and I have always talked a lot, and anybody who is around us knows that we are yapping all the time, and we've been like this for the past going on 16, 17 years of being together at this point. And it was one of the things, my sister-in-law was like, they talk a lot, So my point though is, we didn't really like argue. Like, we just don't, because I feel like most of the conversations are always kind of happening. And it's not to say that it's great to not argue, because I come from a passionate family that we yell and scream. And I think sometimes adversities help relationships, because you have to build some trust to know that you and the other person can actually come out on the other side, and if those things are never tested, that doesn't mean you need to be in something crazy. But I do think that you don't really know who you're with, friend or mate or otherwise, until you go through some shit, something. And so that was one of those, like, and we've been blessed to not have had very extreme levels of things to go through as a couple at that point. And we probably have been married almost 10 years, but that was like, oh yeah, here you go. I'm gonna just sit back and watch and see what happens, and the way that we responded to it, or the way that I responded to it, was like, I'm ride or die, always have been, always was, I am who I am, and this is what it is, and we're gonna figure it out. And that's it, like, so when we were going through, him being sick and all of that, I was on protector mode everywhere. And I feel that way anyway, but I'm like, everybody out. I don't care who you are. You got to go. Family only. Everybody leave. Don't call me. Don't come over. No, you can't come here. So what? Yeah, we got a pool. We got space. You can't come. I love you, but you can't come. And we were very insulated to ourselves. And I was very unapologetic about it. And, because it was also backstory to that right after, literally on piggybacking off of Jeff having COVID and finally starting to feel better. My mom was here, and she literally started to feel sick as he was finally starting to feel better. And the whole time this was going on, I had it and didn't know because no one knew. So, and I was more like asymptomatic, if you will. Like I've like had no taste and smell before anybody even knew that was a symptom. And I was like running around caring for him. And then my mom is sick and I'm like, I'm cooking this food and I don't even know why I can't taste it. Like, I don't know why I'm eating this, only to find out that was a symptom, right? So adrenaline must have been what was keeping me going through both of those things. But this was probably about the worst 8 weeks of my life at this point, because I'm watching him lifeless, literally, and then my mom is literally piggybacked off of it. It was from March 12th till damn near Mother's Day. By the time Mother's Day came around, my mom
Wow.
was finally starting to feel normal again and could walk up a flight of stairs.
Wow.
And it
Yeah.
was my husband and my mother.
Wow.
Right. So my point is more like, at that point, like Jeff said, it was like, damn everything else. Like, no. You call me about something work related? Yeah, no. I got nothing for you. And anybody who's still talking about work right now, I can't. But what I wanted to get back to you real fast on.
Wait, before you
Go ahead.
wait, don't pivot, because I want to stay right there for 1 second.
Okay.
Because the thing you're not mentioning, which I've been really wanting to ask you this question, is you're not only dealing with Jeff, you're not only dealing with your mom, you're not only dealing with kids, but you're dealing with public awareness, because the whole world then got this memo.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy time.
The whole world, including me, got this memo that my friend was about to die. So it got me. Yeah.
That was, again, a lot of what happened during that time for me was really coming inward. Like, who is the circle? You know, first and foremost, I'm like, okay, I am making sure that I am good and making sure that my family's good. And then I'm making sure that Jeff's family is good. You know, like when it came to dealing with the public.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where the
I really,
your mic is off, Jeff. Your mic's on.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I couldn't. You know, and even then, you know, when we start talking about expectations, you know, the expectations on who felt like they should have been getting a play-by-play of what was going on with Jeff at those moments, I got nothing for you.
Right.
I knew who needed to know, you know, and I was unapologetic about who needed to know information and who didn't. And, you know, we actually just saw Miss Tara the other day, and you know, conversations about Biz, R.I.P. God bless him. God bless her. But when there was a lot of people who really wanted to know a lot of information about what was going on with him, I understood her perspective in that in a way that I don't know about whether other people did, you know, because she knows her man and she knows what he would have wanted other people to know. And she knows who's in the list of people, the short list that might need the real-time updates versus you'll find out when you find out. Yeah. And if you're worried so much about getting the update because you think you're measuring your hierarchy of importance, you're making it about you and you're not making it about them. So then I got nothing for you there either. So that was really and it was a lot of, like I said, family members who were extremely supportive in that, like, what do you need? How can we support? And that's always going to be a blessing. My mother, my sister, they both have always been the ones like focus on what's important, you know, in those ways. And so I thank God that I have that. But yeah, the public thing was interesting because there was people who wanted to know stuff, but again, expectations.
Yeah.
You know, and there's the secret about an expectation. We operate like we think that there's an action that we are going to do to change someone else's expectation of us or someone's opinion of us or someone's perspective. We have zero control. We think other people, so-and-so thinks this about me. So if I do X, I can make them think Y. No, it doesn't work that way. It may make them change their thought of you, but it's not necessarily guaranteed to change it the way you think. So why are we even having that conversation? Like, and yes, it's easier said than done because we all are we get caught up in it. But I think that idea of expectations of what and who and all of those things, like, you know what's so funny? People actually are paying more attention to themselves. They're not even paying enough attention to you anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
are you paying that much attention to what that dude's doing? No. And again, like I said, I have to constantly, these conversations are great because I got to constantly remind myself of that too, like everyone else. But it is very true. Nobody is worrying about you as much as you worrying about you.
Yeah.
So all of those hoops you're dancing through, hoping that, Susie is going to watch how hard I'm working. Susie worried about Susie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Susie over there dancing that same dance, trying to make sure James is watching how much she's working, and neither one of y'all are looking at each other at all.
Yeah.
Or maybe looking at who you need to be looking at, or right,
or looking in the sky and looking at something completely different. Like, you just the point is, those we have to continue to remind ourselves of that, so that we're moving in a way that makes sense to actually get us where we think we want to go.
I want to, 1 second. I wanted,
Yeah.
now we can. Wait.
No.
No.
You
Now we
can?
can.
Now you can.
Now we
Okay.
can. Yeah, okay. So, and I didn't know that I would erupt into tears when I thought about that, but I did. And so
You almost got me.
and that was a moment
Me too.
where
you
when I
got
thought,
me.
when I thought about it, and we're gonna stay in this pandemic conversation for a little bit. Then we're gonna move to strategies, because I really want to learn from you three on like what you're doing today. But I'm gonna punt it over to Brian to talk about pandemic and and COVID and all kinds of those things, because I know you have some experience with it.
Yeah, I think first of all, y'all got me going, both first touching me. But if you look at all the stuff I have in here that I want to share and say, I got notes on the left hand side. So I want to hit a couple of things. First, I want to thank the three of y'all, right, for that conversation. And one of the things we talked about when we were planning this episode is, what's the objective? What are we doing? And I think a part of it, and you hit it earlier, Lynette, look, we're not experts in this, but one of the things we can do is have a vulnerable conversation, be comfortable putting ourselves out there, expressing it. And man, you guys just exemplified that. I feel a bit here that I'm the outsider. You guys have let me in. I'm gonna go back to, I'll talk about that fateful day at Austin, right? I remember James is like, you know what? We're gonna go see my man Jeff. You know what happened when we pulled up in the Uber? James jumped out of the car, forgot everybody behind him, grabbed you, and you guys embraced for about 60 seconds, right? And that's what makes me want to go back and just say thank y'all. Now, what really triggered me, and it hits anxiety, pandemic, relationships, support systems. I first want to say, you guys probably don't know this. My wife, I have known since I was 13 years old. I first asked her out when she cornered me by the Slurpee machine and told me, don't be shy, I can tell her I like her.
I love it.
So shit, y'all gonna make me cry. So
Oh gosh.
So to Jennifer Dawson, you got me through a lot, right? And that's the support system I've ridden with that has held me up.
Mm-hmm.
God, what y'all doing, man? Shoot. And so the pandemic did something for me. And first, Jeff, God bless. I'm glad you're here with us, right? The pandemic was a time where, look, I've worked remote since I left Sony PlayStation in 2005. I wake up every day. My surrounding of my office is this place you see me sitting in. But we're also on this journey, graduated kids to college, pandemic hit, and it's like, wow, I've known this lady since I was 13, but now we are trapped in a house together trying to figure out if we're going to make it work. Now, running along with that, all of a sudden, everybody's digital, right? So I'm Mr. Helper. I'm trying to help everybody else. And at some point, the remote changed. That 10-hour day turned into 16 hours of everybody getting at you and hitting you because everybody's locked down now. Everybody's on chat and email. And it was the first time I had to let go. And look, I'll admit this. I was one room over at some point, and I was just sitting on the bed, y'all, and I started crying. I just had no idea why. It never happened. And you know, I think, and y'all got to think about this, right? We had George Floyd, we had the reckoning, we had the chains of how we engage with relationships. We had it was a lot. And I explained to people that I developed real empathy because, as I say, I could squint my eyes. I don't know if I'd call it a nervous breakdown, but I could squint my eyes and I could look at the horizon and I could understand what a nervous breakdown looked like. That was sort of my wake-up call on a couple of things. And, you know, one is I started meditating. I started changing my morning routine. I started making my morning routine. Now, mind you, I weeble, wobble, don't fall down. I can't say I do it all the time, but I found a tool, right, that helped. It's wake up slow. Don't rush to the computer. that the people that respect you and know about you, back to Lynette about cutting off the public, they will wait. Right? They'll be there for you. Take your time, get your center, do what you can do, and then and then breathe, right? And so I guess the last thing, because there's so much I have loaded here, that I'll say is it's part of age and maturation, but part of the trigger of that pandemic, recognition of appreciation of my beautiful support system and my wife, and just realizing don't shit matter, frankly, but my loved ones. I'm going to go to, oh my God, I'm forgetting her name because she was on Questlove Supreme. Excuse me. You guys know her name. She's amazing. But this is an old man moment. Ruby from Blackish, right? And she said, look, she turned around and said, I'm sorry, please, Lynette, help me because I'm blanking.
Jennifer.
And Jennifer said,
Jennifer
she
Williams.
turned around and she said, why am I living for people that don't give a damn if I die?
Woo!
Right? And my success
Jennifer
metric
Lewis.
was Jennifer Lewis. Thank you. At the end of the day, shoot, would I love to be dancing on a yacht in Miami, be able to live fly, do fly shit? Or Kanye said I'm dope and I do dope shit. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. It's that my wife, my son, my daughter, my friends, the people that have been there with me and I care about, when I hit the end of this, it's who's going to show up at my funeral. It's when I'm on the bedside, who's going to show up there next to me. And they end up being my center. So I'm going to stop with that. I want to thank you guys for what you gave. And thank you for listening.
And
you know what?
I want to get, I think we're going to say the same thing too, Jeff. You just said about the when you're not here thing.
Yeah.
You have a moment on Instagram and everybody will be talking about you for a week. And then they're going to be moving on to their own lives.
That's
and
it.
That's not to minimize your presence in this world, but it's also make it count for you.
Yes.
Because again, when you're not here, they're going to have to go back to doing them.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? A friend of mine posted something, and I read this to Lynette this morning. A friend of mine posted something on Facebook that really hit me. And I kind of already live my life like this, and I know it may frustrate some people, but they said it's a relatively new phenomenon that basically everyone in your life gets access to you at all times. It was only 20 years ago that you left the house for the day, you were actually gone. You would return messages when you came back, hours or even days later. And someone else said, my phone is there for my convenience. It is not an electronic leash. If it's not convenient for me to talk for any reason, including I just don't feel social right now, I am not obligated to answer. This is not rude. This is normal personal boundaries. At the end of the day, I grew up when before the drug dealer culture, and we all thought we were doctors and got pagers because we thought it was cool. If you were in the house when someone called, they got a chance to talk to you. And Will put this in his book. The MC that I had before Will, the night that I got the call to do the party next door to Will's house, I called my MC and he wasn't home. He wasn't home. I don't know where my life, I don't know where Will's life, I don't know how everything would have been different if he would have answered the phone. But that's how we grew up. Hey, is Lynette in? No, she's not. Can you tell her Jeff called? Okay.
Yeah.
And you hang up, and it's just kind of like, listen, let me tell you something. Call Lynette's house again, and her mom answered the phone. Boy, did not tell your ass that she wasn't home. Now you get somebody that will ring your phone over and over and over. And I'm going to tell you, this started with the pager culture. I remember when we all had page. I don't know why. It was fly back then. But we all had pagers, and you would have that friend that would page you 911. And you would call back and they'd be like, yo, what's up? What's going on for the day? And I'm like, okay, I need you to answer. What are you going to page me when it's an emergency? If what's up is a 911, what are you going to page me? You have now desensitized the emergency because now I'm not going to ever believe you're 911.
I had a boss who said, if everything is an emergency, nothing is an emergency.
There you go.
Yeah.
That lies to the people.
Yeah.
If everything's important, nothing is important. James, I know you're going to lean into prioritization. It's a good transition, right?
Yeah.
You got to prioritize. But I'm sorry, real quick, it'll be short.
Yeah.
I got to say, that's the contract with the homies, right? They know, look, there's a couple of days. If you reach me and I don't answer, you're not going to get sore because we all got things to do. We're all moving at our own pace. But I will tell you what happened. If you go dark for too long, we're sending out a flare.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like to check in now that's wellness check. That's a different conversation altogether.
But I'm talking about people who don't have check-in privileges.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you just kind of like, yo, man, I've been calling you.
Right.
And you know, and I'm also one of those people that is kind of like, you know, you mad that I haven't gotten back to you. Did you know if I was in the hospital? Like I actually, you know, when I was sick, there were people that were calling. Like I had a business person that was calling me, and to the point that they called my son and they were like, I need to talk to Jeff. And of course, my son did not want to divulge my condition. He was just like, my dad is really sick. And this person said, can you go in there and ask him a question? That's boundaries.
Yeah.
That's boundaries. And of course, it was nothing but tears when it came on the television that I was on my deathbed. Oh, I didn't know, you know, and that's where we are now. And, you know, that's going back to the original question. This is the reason that I was able to make that pivot, because it was twofold. It was the world shut down and I almost wasn't here. So it was kind of like, you know what? I have a pecking order of my priorities that I am going to live by. And if people don't understand that, I really can't help you.
Yeah.
I got a new phone because of that. When I started managing Jeff officially, I got a separate phone.
Smart.
I didn't used to want to have two phones.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm a little old school. I don't even believe in really conducting business over a text message anyway.
No.
And I also think it's not productive because you're looking, is it in my phone? Is it a text? Did they email me?
Yeah.
It's put it in one spot.
Yeah.
But my point was, don't text me.
Yeah.
It's intrusive. I have people who think that
That's why I haven't gotten an answer, Lynette.
Yeah, probably. Because it's, again, like you said, it's literally one of those. It's the equivalent of like tapping somebody on the shoulder, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm trying to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kind of busy." You
Yeah.
know, and I
May I
think
say, I had a
Hold on.
pull-up.
Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to go to. Okay, I want to get off the phones for a minute.
dang it, I like the phone conversation.
I know.
Don't text me.
I'm going to bring something else up because you brought something up, Brian, which was the homies. And I want to talk about support systems. And I want to talk about the importance of support systems. And I'm going to tell you that one of the things that I realized from a wellness perspective, going through real challenges in my relationship, is that I'm going to speak to men for a minute. I really think it's important for men to have other healthy men in their life. And so when you brought up the homies, I was just thinking, Brian, I mean, I think I know who your homies are, but, just the idea of like healthy men who will check you, who will hold you accountable, who will not just be yes men. It's really important to have those in your life. And I'm going to go to Jeff first, just because, like, I think when I said the yes men, I can speak from a standpoint of, I had a lot going on in my career. I traditionally have a lot going on in my career. And I have a lot of people around me who are two things. I know you'll relate to this. They're either yes men and they just agree with anything I say, and everything I say is amazing and wonderful, and every idea I have is incredible. And then I also have people who are transactional men. Can I get that? Can you call that person for me? Can I borrow $1? Whatever the thing is. And I know that I was really challenged recently. I was in a relationship, and the person I was with was just like, you have too many yes people around you. You have too many people that actually don't just call you on your shit. I'm on a real mission right now to not have that. I don't want yes people around me. I want people who just will call me out. And I have that. I'm starting to build that. But what does that look like for you as an infrastructure play for you, Jeff? Like just the type of people that you keep around you, and those kinds of transactional, saying whatever they want to say to you because you're DJ Jazzy Jeff. What does that look like for you?
Well, I think the funny thing is this always goes back to the pandemic. I feel like when the world shut down, I literally went from a giant team of people that I felt like one person was holding the nail, one person was lining it up, the other person had the hammer, instead of one person doing the job. And when the pandemic happened, I had to get, life made you get rid of everyone because we didn't know, there was a point in time, April, May, June, that you were kind of like, I don't know if this is ever coming back. So I am focusing on what's here right now, and like almost clearing your palate. What I found is I started grabbing some of the staples that I had, and people, I'm blessed to have, people like Uncle Steve in my life that will check you, that will tell you no, that will tell you that's a bad idea. Don't do that. You need to drink some water. You need, and blessed to have a wife that, hey, sometimes she gonna tell you the shit that you don't want to hear. And it may be tough to hear, but I'm not stupid to look in the mirror and think she's wrong. I just don't like it. But that's the whole thing. To me, that's maturity. Nobody likes the taste of the cough syrup, but the shit works. So I think just getting to that point, I almost felt like I got the chance to build what I was doing back up from the ground, and you started, it's almost like someone asking you that question, Brian, if you had a chance to do it all over, how would you do it? But they're asking you from today, Brian. So I almost feel like I got that chance to build this back up from today, Jeff. Okay, today, Jeff will realize that you keep the people around you that have your best interests. That I am somebody that I don't like I don't believe in blatant conflicts of interest. I believe that if people can't handle the conflict, that's when it's a conflict of interest. You can have someone, there are people that will say the conflict of interest of my wife being my manager can affect. It's only going to affect if we allow it to. Yeah. Like that's the whole thing. That is kind of like, I feel comfortable hiring people that I know. I have admitted some stuff to myself very recently that I'm not going to really share, but it's very deep to get to this point in time in your life and you say something out of your mouth that has never come out of your mouth before, but you thought it. And you're just like, oh shit, I just said exactly why I am like I am. And it's just one of those things that I feel comfortable with certain people. I've had a ton of friends that I've had friends that worked for me that when they don't work for you anymore, they're not your friend. Mm-hmm. Which kind of makes me feel like it wasn't the friendship. It was just what I was able to do. Like what you were saying, James, about the demands that people put on you. I've had friends, and I used to crack this joke that if I have loaned money to 1,000 people, 2 people have paid me back. But with that, I don't have the expectation that if I loan money to anybody, I'm ever going to get it back, because I don't want to put that on myself. It's I've always said some of the things that happen to me that I don't like, I seen all of them coming. I just ignored it. Because sometimes seeing the truth, just like I said, the cough medicine, sometimes seeing the truth hurts.
Yeah. If you're joining, and say you're joining late, we got a packed audience. I can see that. May is actually mental health awareness month.
Mm.
I want to actually shout out a good friend of mine named Shanti Das, who has an organization called Silence the Shame.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out there, just Google Silence the Shame. And what I love about Shanti is she was a top executive at LaFace. You would have no TLC, Tony Braxton, Outkast, if it wasn't for this woman. And she, went on to have a great career, moved to New York City, achieved the dream as an Atlanta girl, and really fell in depression. And came from a family of suicide, and said enough is enough for the industry. So if you guys are out there and you're in the industry and it's, and this conversation is resonating with you, as we said earlier, Brian said it, we've all said it, we're not experts. We're just, 4 humans here being as real as we can be, shedding tears, laughing. There's some real folks out there who have organized resources around expertise. If you're a family and you're managing this stuff, there's an organization called NAMI, NAMI. They actually are the ones that gave birth to the May Mental Health Awareness Month. I happen to have an amazing testimony with NAMI, having a close family member that has schizophrenia. And talk about resources. NAMI just came through for me and for my family in a way that I was just, I mean, I didn't know how to talk about these things, how to talk about mental health challenges. So the thing about wellness is you don't necessarily have to be the one going through something. You may be caring for someone who's going through something. And that's why I love what NAMI has actually created, because, you know, it creates a lot of stress when you're caring for someone that's going through something like that. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for Kenneth Cole, who you guys know from the brand Kenneth Cole. He and I had a regular show on Clubhouse during the pandemic, and I got to know Kenneth and his organization really well. Go research these organizations. We're talking about resources. They're out there. They're out there for you. And it's actually like you don't even have to have a lot of money. I'm being honest with you. You know, there are a lot of resources out there. I love what Kenneth Cole has done. He's kind of organized all the organizations. I'm going to remember the name in a second. I'm sorry. That's how bad I am. It's got an amazing name, but I can't think of what it is right now. But what Kenneth Cole has done has been really special. So I want to just shift just in terms of resources and infrastructure. Brian, if you want to tackle this, I mentioned having I kind of pointed to you because you mentioned these homies. But what do you do? What's your resources in terms of other individuals and other folks that can call you on things? And if you don't have one, that's too. Be honest.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I'm going to be honest about. First, let's start with we're going to lean into the expert, right? The expert thing. I'm not even an expert practitioner, right? I'm kind of the person, right, that I can cognitively process and understand kind of what needs to be done a bit, where I'm at. I don't always do the right thing. I've had therapy on my to-do list forever, right? But one of the things to explain, when you said you probably know who I'm talking to when I have the homies, I got this tight inner circle. And these are literally, except for one or two people, are people that I've run with since sixth grade. And, you know, one of the things is they don't care. I mean, they're proud of me. They celebrate me. They stand me up. But when they're my cough syrup, right? They are going to call me because at the end of the day, they have no other vested stake in me other than the fact that they love me, right? And we hope to arrive at 75, 80, 90 together. And so for me, now I caution against, I think there's probably a small percentage of us, honestly, that have this vulnerable men's support group built in that I'm honored enough to have. So I don't want to say, hey, just rely on, don't go see a therapist, right? But I am blessed enough, man, that you know, when the flare goes up, they're there. When I'm moving some way that is detrimental to myself or those that I love, they're there. They're going to call me out, right? I also, man, this will go back to another statement, and I think it was a bit of the pandemic. It was other things. I'm going to give a shout out to my guy Nate. I feed, for better or worse. I should have more internal confidence, right? But like all of us, I'm sending radar pings out, you know, just to kind of feel how I'm perceived. Am I moving right? What's going on? So I rely on a lot of feedback, and you know, some young brothers that call me a mentor. In particular, a comment stuck out, Jazz Club London. Nate, he said, look, Brian, you know what? You are the person that showed me that a black man can move in a corporate environment authentically. And he said it was important to him. Now, why does that matter? Because when I move authentically, I'm probably overly vulnerable. But one of my other tools, man, is I try to find safe environments, and even when I'm casually connecting in new relationships. And honestly, I'm going through therapy in every conversation that I have. In other words, I'm exposing myself. I'm getting your feedback and insight. I'm asking you about yourself. Now, last, James, on this, I'd say we hit a lot of what right now are my coping mechanisms, right? It is free myself from the expectations of others, know I'm always going to be the best I can be, and I'll try it, right? And I'm always going to try my hardest. And if you are asking for something that goes beyond that, I got a cutoff. James, I told you I'm going to send you that file, but I did 30 other things. It is 6 o'clock. I got to go down and have dinner and spend some time with my dog. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to hit it and I'm going to try it again. I feel like what I am trying to get better at every day is being a weeble wobble, ensuring that I always have my center and I always fall back to my center, my loved ones, my people, my quiet time, my inner peace. But I know I'm always going to get knocked left and right. As long as I can get that base right, weeble and wobble, but they don't fall down.
Yeah. I'm gonna build on that in that I found in doing my own personal development work that I lied to myself so much that it was causing issues in my body. And, Kobe Bryant once said, "I never make a contract with myself that I don't keep." And I found myself, man, making so many contracts with myself every day that I didn't keep, that it was just ridiculous. And I actually just realized I was a liar, if I can be honest. And those small lies just were lies I told myself and lies I told other people. And I've really been working on that. I've really been working on this idea of being a full body commitment. And I'm not perfect. I am trying this. I'm trying to make this work. But I went through some really interesting personal development work where I just wanted to be honest and live honestly. And I realized that in the business that I work in, or that I came from, we did a lot of lying. We did a lot of hype. We did a lot of whether it was me lying about, not lying, but stretching the truth around an artist, or even worse, having to tell an artist something when it's not the truth. I know I'm telling this artist, man. I never forget, man. I'll keep it 1,000. I knew that we were screwing this artist over, and Chuck D came in my office, and he literally closed the door, and he was like, "Nigga, I need you to be real with me." And I had been lying. We weren't doing this artist right, and I had to imagine Chuck D comes in your office. I had to have a really real conversation because I was holding this company line. I was holding the Columbia Records thing, and it's part of the work I do today is because I feel like the PTSD I have is we lied so much to artists. I want to make sure that artists have the truth. I want to make sure that artists out there know what's going on because, man, I lived behind Excel spreadsheets where I knew these artists weren't going to recoup. I knew it. I was like, there's no way you're going to recoup that. And they didn't even know what we were spending money on. And so why the Creators Union is so special to me is because I lived a lot of years lying to the world, lying to artists on behalf of the, record label and the salary. And I want to keep my job and all those sorts of things. So I just want to say that like there's something about this idea of being a full commit and being a full commitment. And again, I am work in progress. I do not have this all figured out, but I'm aware of it. And I think one of the things is just consciousness. If you're aware that you're aware, and so many folks aren't even aware. I'm aware that like, you know what? I have made so many commitments. So, my commitments really, I always said I wanted to take Taekwondo. So I just like locked in and I'm a year in and earned 4 or 5 belts and box 3 days a week. But I would always talk about it. I'm gonna start fighting guys when I was 16. Man, I was nice. I wasn't nice. I was nice. I could do blah, blah, blah. Man, it feels really good in your body when I'm like, I actually went to Taekwondo today. Actually, I actually said I actually did something that I said I was gonna do. So that's something out there for you. I want to add.
James, before you ask somebody else something, let me get into that.
Let me build on that.
Okay.
It might be where you're going. The reason that loving yourself, the reason that like for me the process of confronting all these things was because I need my boys, I need my crew, but I got to know that I love myself and I respect myself well enough that I can handle anything. and that I have, for me, not just who I am, whose I am, the fact that I have a relationship with a God that's got me, right? Before I even call my boys. That's really great. I'm going to pivot to this, and you can pick up on this. The thing where that comes really important of knowing yourself, knowing thyself, is that it allows you to handle rejection or what you may call a no or whatever it is. I am in a position today, and I'm getting much better at this. I can handle a no. I can handle a no because I've got myself. And it hasn't always been like that. I've been a people pleaser. I've been trying to do things for the optics. And I just want to say that, there's something about this internal structure that we have. When you work on this internally, when no one else is seeing, forget the body, forget your pecs, your muscles. When you work on this internal thing, I am not an expert. I am not a therapist. I'm putting that out there right now. But there is a correlation between internal gym work and external results. And there's a discipline. There is at the end of the day, I can look at myself and respect the work that I put in every night. And so, yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, and what I want to do, and sorry, because I know, and now you're opening up a deep thing, but it does also work. I want to put you, look, James, we've known each other for years. We've connected in and out. I think heavily as we're engaging almost day to day, for the past 2 years, I've been watching you on the journey. I've been watching you make a commitment to yourself, try, fail, but then try to be extra honest. Kind of in line, I want to ask you, because I want to hear you just a little bit more. You talk about the way you moved before. You talked about the lies, and now you're coming into self-love. And while you're talking about how you're moving different, can you tell me about if or how you were able to forgive yourself, right? Like, how do you reconcile? Because that's going to be kind of a common thing. Once we start to introspect and we look back, and I'll just give me for a bet, because I had the bad, I practically have Tourette's around the house, walk around. Fuck, I didn't do the right. Fuck, right? That's internal dialogue. So I really want to ask you, because that's a big thing, and I commend you for calling it out. People say I was a liar, right? Yeah, and are not still lying. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did everything from set joy alarms on my phone 6 times a day, where I literally might just break out in the middle of a meeting and just start being like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, just joy. And I think it's this belief that, like, man, I'm just so blessed and so fortunate. I have so much gratitude for the life I live and the mistakes I made and the mistakes I continue to make. But, like, I have to access joy. I have to honestly, can I be 1,000? It's crazy that I'm here with the greatest DJ in the world. DJing has been that joy. I can literally go and DJ and be like, I can DJ for one person. It doesn't have to be anybody. But, like, there is something about the relationship I have. I've done a gospel house set and had an entire Kenny Bobin praise breakout. You know what I'm saying? Like I've had a BB and CC Winans Masters at Work remix just moment. And music for me has been the way in which I love the fact that music can bring me there. I think for me, forgiveness is something I'm working through. I have trauma and shame. I always thought trauma was, and a lot of love goes out to people out there that have had sexual trauma. It turns out 1 in 4 people are the survivors of sexual trauma. And I went through some personal development work where I realized that everybody has trauma. It's not just sexual trauma. It's the way your mom said something to you, the way anything, the world that we live in, being Black in America, it is, we are all traumatized. And that trauma, I feel like, was preventing me from forgiving myself. That trauma was like, was allowing myself to beat myself up over, like, not being good enough or making mistakes, or you don't make mistakes, right? And I'm glad you asked me that question, because even today, I'm going to have to leave this conversation and forgive myself for some things that happened before we even went into this broadcast. And I found that for years and years, I didn't forgive myself, and I was actually numb to it. I was actually really numb. And honestly, I don't even think I even know how to say sorry to people that I offended, even when I lied to people. Like, I don't even think I really understood like what a true apology even sounded like. Um, and I'm a work in progress. I don't know if I'm still working through like how do you say sorry? What does apologetic really mean? But first thing I do is really before I can apologize to anybody on the planet, is I have to look at myself and say, you know what, you are forgiven. You are divinely made, crafted,
Mhm.
and if no one else forgives me for the wrongs I wronged them for today, and I'm saying that to anybody who's listening right now, I'm gonna forgive myself first, because
Mhm.
that creates sickness. And there's a book called The Body Keeps Score. And when you store this stuff in your unforgiveness, all these sort of things, you actually create a body that can get sick really easy. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I'm here. I have so much more life to give. I'm not about to
Mhm.
nobody's situation let this container be sick. So I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna ask people what they do and how do they forgive themselves. But I'm a work in progress, and I think part of it is just being completely honest, living
Yeah.
honestly with myself internally, and then being honest with those around me. I think I stored a lot of wanting to please other people, and I still do that, and I want to get rid of that. Thank you for the
Yeah,
question.
that is really really important because sometimes sometimes it's not you. A lot of times it's not you because you can forgive yourself and someone not forgive you.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't want to sound harsh, but at the end of the day, as long as I can forgive myself, and if I feel like I'm forgiving myself honestly, I'm good. I don't have any control over what anybody else feels or anybody else says. Um, it has to start, it has to start with you, but I remember the one thing that I would always joke with is Charlie Mack is a really, really good friend, old friend. And if you know Charlie, you know Charlie is a unique personality. But Charlie would blurt out so many things that I thought that it would be these humongous aha moments. And I remember going through one of those expectations and I'm not living up to what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not achieving my goal. And Charlie looked at me one day without a blink in the eye and said, if it ended tomorrow, how could you be mad? And I remember looking at him and I looked at him kind of like angry because that wasn't what I wanted to hear. But he was just like, if everything ends tomorrow, how could you be mad? He said, you've done more, you've seen more, and you've gone more places than 99.9% of the people on the planet. And when he said that, I said, how fucking selfish am I to be mad to want more after everything I've gotten?
Mm.
And that day, I joke with him because I really feel like I let go. I was kind of like, you know what? If this is it, I'm good. I this was a great ride. I want to do more, but I I really am trying, and and the same thing, work in progress. But I am really trying to live my life in a way when Brian said, my friends, we're trying to get to 60, 70, 80, and 90 together. I am really trying to live my life that no matter when the day comes that I'm out of here, I'm going out like that. I'm going out like, yo, I did it. This was amazing. I had a blast. I hope I made some people happy. I hope I made the creator happy. I'm on to the next one. I don't want any regrets. If I'm looking at this like I got one life to live, I need, hey, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, to the point that I don't want to have any regrets. And I don't have any regrets right now.
Mm. You know, man, this conversation has been so rich, and people in the chat are, I mean, I'm doing my best to try to read the chat and move the screens and all the things. But you know what's really sad is that the comments I see is like, this is rare. You know, like
Yeah.
what, you
Which
know,
is
and
sad.
it's really sad. And you know, one of the things I'll say about working in the music industry is there's so much trauma and so much wellness needed. You know, I'll tell you this funny story. I hate music videos. I hated being on music video sets. It's like the worst part of my job. I hated it. It was disgusting.
Really?
It's like all these hours. This is a random thing. It's the time, and I just didn't like it. And I don't know why. But you know what I loved about music videos? I love sitting in the makeup room with the makeup artists and the artists. As a product manager, my job was to build these really close relationships with artists. I found that the makeup room was the one place that the artists kept it really real.
It's the barbershop.
It's the barbershop. Because there's this moment where you have insecurities about how you look, and you're realizing this person is responsible for bringing you out into the world. And there was a makeup artist named Nzinga. She was the best at this. And Nzinga just was like a therapist and a makeup artist. And she used to bring these things out of my artists that I would just sit in the back and be like, wow, I've never heard them go there like that. Like and it shouldn't be just the makeup artist in a creative environment. And, you know, I wonder, you know, my friends that love Renaissance that manage, you know, Black and a bunch of, you know, hit artists, they have an on staff, you know, therapist, you know, that one of the first record labels to actually bring on a therapist. You know, I love those guys. I love when they prioritize mental wellness, because this is a, you know, what Jeff has talked about. You know, I feel like we don't talk about the cost of fame, and maybe that's a whole other episode in itself. Like, people think that they want to have notoriety, you know, and for me, like, I always love being behind the scenes. The only reason that people knew about me is because Twitter hit, and I had a major Twitter account, and I, you know, started appearing on CNN and Don Lemon show. But like, I was quite happy if no one ever knew me. I don't want that. That's not anything I wanted.
And yet
And
you
I think
pulled me into this podcast. I was fine too, you know.
you are beloved.
Hey.
The comments we're getting
Sitting
in this
here
thing,
like,
I
I
know.
third that, Lynette. I
They
third that.
love you in here. They
Like,
love you in here.
I'm perfectly
But
fine in the back.
the cost of infamy or fame, or even being on a podcast show, what's it cost, and what's it mean? And I feel like that's a whole separate episode. The last thing I'll just say is, and I think we'll wrap up soon. I want to make this is going to be a concise, tight. I think we've covered a lot.
You know, I'm jumping in. Before you do,
One second.
that Lynette was queued up. I'm not going to say anything other than I want to represent for Queen Towns here. But back over to
I actually am going to Lynette next, because this is a perfect segue. You, interestingly enough, you know, like myself, we're not famous. We weren't famous. Like, you're like, hey, you got put me on this thing, but you've had to like now work in this world and be married to this world and see it from a perspective that not many people actually get the opportunity to see. You've seen it on all levels now, you know, and you also are a very deep thinker. I was watching your Instagram live the other day. You just pulled up in the kitchen and you were like, okay. you did the whole thing. So you actually, as much as you say, you know, why am I here? You actually care about the people who are following, because you know that people are watching you, and you have a responsibility, and you're a deep thinker, and you actually care about the people who are following you. So I know that about you already, and it was great to watch you the other day. But what have you recognized in terms of systems, not even just what you've built with Jeff, but what do you see in the, you know, playlist retreat DJs, or the hip hop 50 stuff you just went on tour and did? What were you seeing there as a non-famous person, but a major part of the fame infrastructure?
I seen this actually goes the line Brian, with the things that I wanted to touch on. People are looking for language to articulate, explain, express what they're dealing with, what they're going through, that sort of thing. And so, what I watched when you're talking about men, especially, is a lot of them getting together and actually talking more about their feelings and their what they're going through. And that was the cool part. Like I really was excited watching, like, hip hop is grown, like one of the I like during the Rock the Bells, or actually to go back, the Force tour. I watched the Force tour and I watched people like Jeff and LL and all of the guys, Big Boy, everybody who was on that tour kind of coming in and out, but they get to see each other, they embrace, and they sit back, and some of them had grandkids and some of them had kids with them, and some of them had, they were really embracing like their grown man shit. But they were also very much talking about a lot of the same things, dealing with the industry changing and what do I do and how do I move and all of those things. But along that same line, when we were talking about like your mental health and whether the therapy is a thing, or to your point about having men to have a conversation with, I think a lot of this has to do with people wanting to figure out the right language to articulate what they're thinking, how they're feeling, what they're going through. And I think that is really the core of all of it. Like, first off, it's helping you become more self-aware, like you were talking about before. Like, going to talk to somebody, doesn't matter who that somebody is a process of putting that mirror back and saying, oh, I am like that, or okay, I guess I am like that. Like, oh well, just you could figure out ways to do that. And on top of that, saying, oh, I'm going through this because of X, you know, and just understanding how being able to do that can really help you feel better, or even get you more on a path to feeling something different, something maybe less crappy. Like, there's a couple of things like that the negative self-talk may stop more once you're like, oh yeah, well, you know whatever that thing is about you, that you're like, initially you may be beating yourself up about it, whereas another part of your life you can talk to someone who might help you have a different perspective about it. And so that's really one of the things that has popped up as a theme that I've been hearing. Like, it's been a lot of, oh, self-awareness and self-love and understanding more about myself, or, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And talking to someone else and bouncing those ideas off of another person will help you get closer to doing that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a therapist, whoever you find that for.
Can I rudely being the guy that rudely interrupts, just to capture something you said there before I hand it back? Because it sounds like you're sort of saying, hey, sometimes you're going to accept feedback and you're going to find there's a part of you that you don't love, but there's a bit of able to say, okay, yes, and I mean this half jokingly, yes, I can be selfish or an asshole sometimes. I'm going to acknowledge that. I'm going to put that acknowledgement in a place, and then I'm going to deal with it over time. Is that a bit of what you were saying?
Absolutely. Like, we have traits, we know who we are. I think that's the biggest thing that I tell people all the time. Like, you know who you are.
Yeah.
Like, you do. Whether you're going to be honest about that or not. And maybe there's someone out there to help you. Jeff and I have a saying, I know who I married. I know who he is. We have two very big things are the themes. I know who I married. And what's the other one, Jeff?
Experience over things.
So I know who he is. And I can't expect him to be something else other than who he is.
Yeah.
I can't expect me to be something other than who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
because that doesn't mean that you're going to just be like, well, take it. You just going to get this, and I'm going to just be a B word just because I got a sharp tongue and I'm sarcastic. It's like, no, that's not what that means. It's more about understanding yourself and channeling who you are in a way that makes you feel better about who you are and a lot less bad about it. Like, what do you do? How do you do that? I'm passionate, Oh, I get excited. I get excited whether I'm mad about something, but I'm equally as excited when I'm happy. So people have to take the good with the bad, right? Understanding that about yourself, whatever that thing is, someone out there, whoever you find, can help you channel that, figure that out, go on that journey with you. And that's really what I think is important. It could be a family member in that case, but if it's a therapist, if it's a men's group, if it's whatever the thing is, that helps you get more towards understanding of yourself and less about judging yourself or criticizing yourself. Like, that's what I hear, like self-awareness and all those things. It's all this journey for you to understand yourself more than it is about, let me fix. Like,
Yeah.
I hate the word fix. We're not fixing anything. You're not broken.
Yeah.
How can you navigate this world in a way that keeps your sense of self intact? That's what I say about my son and my daughter. Like, they have struggles, they have challenges like every other. My job is not to say, what can I do to fix that thing? It's like, okay, this is what you are, this is who you are. How can you navigate this world as this person in a way that makes you feel good about who you are? And also, don't be a sociopath or an asshole. But everything else, like, do you.
Do you?
Do you.
You know what the greatest thing, that's what Bill on that, the greatest thing I learned in sort of personal development work is nothing's either bad or good. It's either ineffective or effective. So it's not like the way that you do this is just ineffective. It's just not working for you. And there's also things that, like, there's ways and armor and things I used to do a certain period of time in my life that just don't serve me anymore. There was a way that I used to operate that it just doesn't serve me at 53 to operate this way. I had as an executive, I had to buck up and had to treat I had to like defend my artists and do all these things, and like I just don't need to do that anymore. It doesn't serve me at this age, and I don't look at it like I was bad. It's just like it's not for me today. Um, and I think this conversation has just been, first of all, just like super rich and super. Um, one is like I get to know you. This is a conversation hopefully that you, the audience, are getting to know us, but I'm getting to know these people in a way that I even though have known them all, Brian being the longest, just in a unique way to understand what the struggles are, how you handle the struggles, and I'm on this journey. I'm not gonna lie to you. And even when I get called out, when I'm saying I want accountability people, I get defensive. Like, what? No, like, and that's something I'm working through, because I think one of the things you were saying, Lynette, is like when someone gives you some feedback, I'm learning how to say, you know what? There's probably some truth in that. Even though I'm like, that doesn't sound like me, the way you describing me, but there's truth in that. And I'm learning how to just take the truth and go, man. But the reality is you can be observant, you can see these things, and this is where I'm at today. It's all about actions. If you don't put things into action, it's just words. You can be conscious, read Deepak Chopra, do all the things. You've got to create actions, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. So it literally starts with actually how you do one thing, how you actually chop that wood, how you get up, how you get up in the morning. Are you, that the lying thing? Like, I don't want to lie in anything. And I just know this has been an incredible conversation. I didn't want to cut you off, Lynette. Is there another part to what you were talking about?
No, you guys are like, we're wrapping up anyway, but I think that you guys are on the right track, particularly with young men and men in general having these conversations. I will say that I have observed that it happens a lot more as men get older.
Absolutely.
And I would charge you with the younger men in your life in figuring out ways for those conversations to happen sooner.
Yeah.
and making that become natural,
Yeah.
normal, normalize that, which is a cliche, but individually, if that's a message I'm gonna spread, it's like, let's
Yeah.
normalize that,
Yeah.
and that be okay. And oh, one thing you did say when you were talking about, this is gonna be the last one. You said that you got comfortable hearing no, but can you say it?
Mm.
Can you say
Yeah.
no? And I
Yeah.
think that is the thing that is at the crux of what Jeff was talking about very early on, about shows and people wanting to do this and wanting to do that and all of these things. Like, at the end of the day, every time you say yes, someone said this to me, my cousin said this, when you say yes to someone else, you're
Yeah.
saying no to yourself every time.
Yeah.
So whatever the thing is that you're saying yes to, that you probably didn't have time for, shouldn't have done, maybe should do later, whatever those things are. And again, I struggle with this now. Like, I cry thinking that I suck at life because there's easily 10 emails I haven't responded back to. But if I keep saying, yeah, Jeff can do that, or yes, this show, or yes, I can do that. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
member of some organizations. Oh, I can do that. No, I can't.
Yeah.
No, I can't.
Mhm.
I cannot. But every time you say that, you say yes.
Yeah.
Now, there's a no now that has to happen where you are the one that's going to suffer from the no.
Yep.
You don't hear it, you don't know about it yet, but it's there.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's the it's the room you didn't clean. It's the nail appointment you wanted to go to. It's the event you hoped you could have gone to. It's the day to do nothing that you was expecting to have that you just didn't.
Yeah.
And like, that's one of those things that, if I, people, the cliche now is no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of it more like, why are we so afraid to say no?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you think that by saying no is gonna happen? What's gonna
It,
happen if you say no? Like, Jeff gives
it's
Mr. Analogy Man. It's like, oh, you're
Mhm.
just filling up your parking spaces with all these things. But if you would just say no, you'd have more parking spaces, and something more, like something better, is gonna pull up in a parking space. That's like a
That's it.
Jeffism.
That's it.
as someone who is a professional at not saying no, Lynette, I will just say this for the people pleasers in the room is when you have that people pleasing thing in you, it's just really hard to say no. And that comes from a place of growing up a certain way, not getting attention from your mom or your dad, wanting to get that attention. And, and I'm not advocating for no's, but I know I'm someone who had a hard time saying no. And I know where it comes from. The important thing is I know where it comes from. I know
Mhm.
saying too many yeses comes from wanting to be liked, wanting to please, wanting to do those things. And it's something that, I didn't even realize I was that person until I went through the work. So that's a message for someone out there. These little observations, you get to like put them somewhere and actually actively work on it. I am actively working on putting myself out there and making sure that I ask for what I want. Part of also being a people pleaser is not
Mm.
want. So then you do something, but you don't even want that. You don't even like that's not even what you want. And for me, even most recently, I was like, okay, how do I put myself in positions where I actually ask for what I want, where I actually can ask for what I want? Um, and so anyway, this was incredibly rewarding. Man, I'm like, I didn't know what to expect going into today. And I'm just grateful for you three for holding this space, for being honest, for bringing your authenticity. And honestly, when we started thinking about Creators Union, I didn't even put the banner up today. I mean, it's crazy, but I'll put it up. But here the whole time I didn't even. There is a place for you to sign up. Go sign up. And the reality is, we built this to have these kinds of conversations at the I would say in the next few weeks, you're going to see us really diving into this community that we've built and
Mhm.
really building out relationships so that we can bring this kind of content to you behind the wall. So you'll have to purchase the token, but I promise you there's real value that's going to be in that token and holding that token. Even if you're holding that token today, promise you, we got some great stuff coming.
Mhm.
We want to make sure that you guys understand what you're coming into. And what you're coming into is the place where you can have these kinds of conversations, because no one's really having these kinds of conversations about the industry, about being a creator, about, fear, about, all the things that we've been discussing up until this point. And so I'm grateful for this conversation and for the ability to just push through, for me, a very, very hard day, a very challenging day. And I'm super grateful for you guys.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.
Thank
See you again.
you.
Yeah.
All right, hey, love y'all. Appreciate